Mitchell. These are my stories. All right, folks, have a good day today. Let me first welcome you to Autism Rocks and Rolls. Now, before we get into this, I'm not a parapsychiatrist. If you're starting to be diagnosed with autism, please see a physician. I always based on my experiences. I also have the right to the intro now to the found on ytmp3.com. I also have a mission to interview with all of you. The mission of Autism Rocks and Rolls is to take the stigma off of autism and other conditions that many are disabilities. People with spectrum are not broken and do not need to be fixed. Those with conditions or abilities want to be pitied. There's nothing to be sorry about. I also have a page for the following. It's time to examine the Rural Music Center, a famous Indiana landmark with 6,147 pavilion seats and 18,000 general admission lawn seats accessible. This outside auditorium in Noblesville, Indiana is the largest outdoor music venue in the Indianapolis region. You won't be disappointed with performances from Luke Bryan, the band ZZ Top, Pitbull, and even Jason Aldean, among others. And there are some people I like to thank. First, I need to give a big thank you to my latest guest, Jake the Snake Roberts, a C308 Beyond Gifted by Jake the Snake Roberts for more information. But what a great guest and papa. Be sure to listen to hear his view on autism and some classic professional wrestling stories. Our friend Frank Now, C217, employed at Coaching the Chris for more information, is looking for official board members. Make sure to come and play by being a board member for this amazing nonprofit organization that helps those with autism who need service animals. I've also started my last year of college at Vincennes University. Wish me luck, everyone. There is a connection that needs to be mentioned, and that is Cynthia Denude from Macaroni Kid by Certifican. Authors of Macaroni Kid may provide parents with insider knowledge on the best kid-friendly events and places to visit in their hometown. Come create hyper-local content with hundreds of parents and grandparents in over 4,000 towns across North America by joining their network. You could hear from them in the future. Before I went back to college, ARAR board member Jake May and my mother, C105 Meet My Mother, including myself, took a trip to Pontiac, Illinois, where our other board member, Steve Jasuski, hosted us in his guest house. And during our stay, we had a lip-sync competition and a concert for Autism Rocks and Rolls. Despite me playing last in the lip-sync battle, I still had a blast. An extra thanks goes to Steve and his girlfriend, Rebecca Jean, for hosting us. Speaking of our board, we did our monthly board meeting. Through this meeting, we decided that we could be selling hats. Be on the lookout so you can have a hat. Also, I did a speed networking event. It was called Networking for Podcasters, Speakers, and Authors through the podcast directory. I had a great time, made some new buddies. Finally, I did appear on some more podcasts. I was on the Kristen Reed podcast with Kristen Reed, the All Over the Place podcast with Eric Leving Porvatsnik and his co-host, the Successful, Self-Employed, and Disabled podcast with Chris Mitchell, the Mediocre Dads podcast with Cleo Wilcox, the Morris Chiakara Show with Morris Chiakara, and Play With Perspective, the Suspended Animation podcast with my pal, Darren Soul. What a great group of podcasts, everyone. We'll be right back. We're going to hear from our old friends, Great White Smoke, so let's get to it.
In the town of Bloomington, Indiana, you can find the best barbecue meat at Great White Smoke. Owned by Dave White, Great White Smoke offers meat catering for events such as weddings and birthday parties. They've won awards such as the 2021 #1 Food Truck in America Grand Champion and the 2019 Kentuckiana Barbecue Pitmasters King of the Q. If you're looking for someone to cook meat for your event, then Dave is your guy. Book them for your next event at 812-229-7571. You can drop them an email on their contact page as well.
Folks are back and you could hear smoke on the water. There's a fire in the sky when you're there. Endre Hoffmann, my sponsor and friend, will steer this episode in a different direction because he is with me today. Endre helps business owners lead transformational changes and seek their potential. He helps owners who have a lack of confidence, self-doubt, feeling exhausted, and working hard. He removes the struggle from their mind so they achieve confidence and peace within. He reconnects them to their authentic leadership and naturally high self-worth. Take it from a man who did a session with him, and once my session was over, I knew he had to come on. Let's welcome the transformational Endre to my podcast. Endre, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm very excited. How are you, Sam? I'm so glad that we have connected.
Oh, me too, brother. So my first question to you is, what does being a self-worth coach mean to you?
It's someone who is empowering people. The way I have defined my life is doing life-changing conversations every day. The more, the better. I started to present, as you know, not one-to-one, but more so one-to-many, so I can empower people to get the results that they deserve and they're looking for, and reconnect them to their internal resources so they can create and attract outcomes that they really want to have.
Everyone has their own authentic selves, and it starts from a certain childhood.
I think that's the best point. As you say, I believe there was a time for everyone when they had that high level of energy, excitement, having fun. They never second guess themselves, that childlike self. I need to restore people to that identity so they won't stop themselves. They won't give in to limiting ideas, limiting thoughts, or at times I find, and in adults, there are emotional patterns. Usually these are negative emotional patterns like frustration or sadness or abandonment, all these things that we didn't have those things early on in life. My work is centered around bringing back that playful, childlike self and then allow them to play in life and get paid for it well.
What were your initial thoughts when you decided you were going to be a self-worth coach?
If someone asked me or told me 10, 15 years ago that, you will be a coach, I would have laughed out loud, because coaching has changed my life. But as you may have heard, it has taken me over 30 years to find out what was wrong with me. And I found the opposite. There was nothing wrong with me, yet I had these feelings of feeling insecure, lack of confidence, second-guessing myself, was always measuring up the environment, and had these doubts inside about whether I'm successful enough. They were all coming from a relationship which was not the best. I was so disconnected from my father, and probably I've been looking for 20 years to feel worthy or feel good enough, which I couldn't find. I had this impossible quest to find external validation, which never works. After spending $100,000, spending years and years on personal development books and Tony Robbins events, John Lee Martini, I've been on live events. I've done past life regression, meditation, affirmations. I got married hoping that I would feel worthy and good enough to launch businesses, and unfortunately failed on businesses. Then corporate career. I've done all of these things, yet eventually my life has collapsed. The self-worth coaching piece was connected to probably the worst week of my life. I remember that week I again worked overnight to make more money. We were living in Australia. I worked about 50, 60 hours a week to make money. I was the breadwinner for the family, and I was doing a home business to break out the 50, 60-hour job. So when I got home, my son was 6-year-old. He asked me, when are you going to play with me? I got home from work, my 12-hour work, and straight jumped into my home business. I was never present for my children and for my wife. And that week, my wife asked me, is it time for us to divorce? That was the wake-up call for me. I realized I can't go on like this anymore. I was sleep deprived. On that week, I had a near-miss accident. I was driving the truck. I woke up in the emergency lane, luckily, before hitting someone. I became 100% committed to do something different. And my wife asked, when are you going to stop this personal development junkiness? When are you going to give this up? I don't know. I had the courage to say, well, I understand you may decide to divorce me and I might lose the kids too. But I said to her, I will never give up. I said, I will never give up on having a better life, more freedom, life on our terms. If it takes for the next 40 years, there's probably I'm beyond hell and probably it's not going to work. And I'm prepared to have my tomb inscribed with, he hasn't given up until the last moment when he died. I realized there is no plan B or C. And plan A was that, just resolve this, because now my health was deteriorating. Like I had massive shoulder problems. And I realized I've done a full circle, the most painful circle in my life, which is I hated my dad because he was never around. I never expressed his love towards me. So he was a dad I run away from. Other side of the planet, Australia, I have done exactly the same thing. And now I became the dad I never wanted to have. I was that sort of person who I never wanted to be. And I realized I'll do whatever it takes. And that's when within 3 months, I've attracted what we call a mindset coach or a self-worth coach who has been able to reconfigure my whole identity, and the doctoral self-worth brand, the self-worth coaching has come out of that transformation. And shortly after, that was so interesting, right? And then I go and see this coach 6 to 12 months, the inside and how I talk to myself, how I feel about myself completely shifted. And I realized 70-80% of my life I was carrying this struggle and trouble. Probably there are people out there who need exactly the same thing, but they don't want to spend 30 years trying to fix their head, fix their heart, fix their self. First I said, well, probably that's what I need to do. And I started to help and offer my services to help people to break out of their self-doubt, getting stuck, getting triggered, and not being able to connect with people, social anxiety. And then one of my first clients called me the doctor of self-worth. So this brand is a gift from one of my first clients.
Well, that's a pretty good name, and that client you can be thankful for because it led you to some pretty cool ideas and some pretty cool people. Speaking of your father, I want to talk to you about your father a little more, actually. We can go into that while we're thinking about it. So when did you get over your dad's abuse, and when did you see his words meant nothing?
So he was highly critical of me. I remember we were on high alert because he was quite emotionally abusive with pretty much everyone, towards himself too, but I never felt safe when he was around because there was criticism coming from left, right, and center that something I haven't done well, or haven't done good enough, or forgot to do. And I felt that nothing's ever good enough for him. There was some physical fights between us. He was a very controlling person. He was quite aggressive. At times, his way to vent off his stress was drinking. Now, that didn't help. The times when we had a few physical fights, I was trying to get my mom in a better place because he was very controlling around money. I was getting stronger, age 15, 16, the underdog in the house, and I just couldn't stand his ignorance and his not knowing how to love and support a family. This was the story of my dad.
And at least you got your answer at some point in your life. It may have been late, but better later than never, as they say.
Absolutely. And the best thing is now I was able to make something out of this mess. And this is a big one probably for audience. I had a wrong question. The human mind is almost like a Google search. So you send this question into the database. Now, what is the database? The database is your mind. The mind goes back towards the past and looks for every piece of information that will answer the question, what's wrong with me? I didn't know that there are specific tools to solve it and resolve it and release it so one can really move on towards a new life of potential and opportunity, because I learned the hard way, and this is what happens for most people. It rings a bell for you. While you're hanging on to these things from the past, you start to repeat the same bloody painful events in your life. Repeating negative events, a sign that you had something in you that may not be aware of and that needs the right tools to be solved.
People usually make it a hill. I mean, for me, before I did the session with you, it was a hill. But then after that session, went from a hill to a small camel's hump. But speaking of the sessions, let's get into those a little more. Can you tell me what the goal is in the first session you do with someone?
Sure. I had 3 things on my agenda. When I need to connect with the person, obviously understand what the problem is. I need to find out where are they stuck, what's not working, what's the biggest struggle, where is life not treating them well. And normally these are 3 areas of life: health, wealth, relationships. Usually that's where the self-worth symptoms or problems are coming up. Now that's not where the actual problem is. Then I want to dig down as far as I can to find the root of it, like we do. So once we found the root, then I'd like to nicely confront the person that, hey, have you realized this? Now, these are the new insights, new understandings that people have this wow experience. How did you see this? And I just help them to connect the dots. Now, I think that's already a life-changing experience because it brings new awareness. The second one is I'm trying to find out what they want instead. So that would be the destination. And then I can see and find out whether, and there's an extreme example. I had a few people reaching out to me and they had set such a destination that I could not help them. And I said, well, I cannot help you with a good heart to tolerate your husband's abuse. I will not be your coach doing that. I can help you to stand on your feet and create new boundaries. But if that's the goal, then probably you need to find someone else. Or if someone is trying to use their skills to something unethical, obviously then I can't stand behind them and I can't support them. And then I want to find out whether they are committed and wanting me to help, and they are ready to do it now, not in 5. If we click and the timing is right, then we'll make a plan going forward, which is usually a 6 to 12 month bi-weekly meetings where I help them to reshuffle what I call myself sometimes the electrician. I reconnect things in their head. They have new associations to things that were uncomfortable before, or they have new associations and new motivation towards what they want. Because what I found, and this might be interesting for your audience, is most people have figured out consciously what they want. And there are so many self-development seminars telling you, oh, set your goals. But then what they do not cover is the unconscious aspect of ourselves, and unconscious part of the mind, which pretty much runs people's lives, is sometimes pushing away that conscious goal, and the unconscious being 100% of the time. And then I help untangle them from these internal conflicts where they want something, yet they are pushing it away. So I align their internal resources, and that starts to happen in the first session. And this is why I love these first sessions, because I never know what happens, but the least is I'm looking for a life-changing experience, and that's pretty much aligned with my life purpose.
Well, it worked with me because I didn't tell you this, Andre. After the session, I freaked out. I didn't freak out in a bad way. It was in a total 100% positive way. I was like, oh my gosh, it was always them. There's this authentic self of me wrestling little Bill. It was mind-blowing what you did. And I would ask you this. So sometimes I bet you have clients who come to you because of trust issues. So how do you build trust with your clients?
Obviously, I'm here to influence people in a positive way, to help them to become a better, more powerful version of themselves. And I have every tool available to connect fast and connect deeply. By the way, I do have a playlist on my YouTube, so just reach out to me under the video if you want, and I will share that with you, which is exactly about how to connect with people and what are the steps to apply and how you could be like their best friend in a short space of time. But beware, if you use these steps, I want you to be ethical always. Never use these for any unfaithful and unjust thing.
How can people reach out to you if they're interested in doing a session with you?
Oh, it's really simple. My website is doctorofselfworth.com. That's DOCTOROF selfworth.com. You'll be able to find on top of each page a link to book a free session. Also on the resources page, I have a few amazing free self-help books. One is called How to Discover Your Authentic Self Faster Than You Ever Thought Possible.
Something else you offer on your website, and I'll be sure to put the website in the show note, is online and mastermind courses. So can you tell our listeners some of the online and mastermind courses you offer?
I do have a bi-weekly group. It's called Step Into Your Power with the Doctor of Self-Worth. I'm happy to take people in there. Also, it takes a conversation before you can qualify. We meet every 2 weeks, and I don't have an agenda. I think this is really important. On these group sessions, I usually allow space for people to present their challenges, and I want to do straight a quick breakthrough, whoever puts their hand up, and then we'll go on what they could be doing to get the results that they're looking for. And of course, then we strategize if we need to. We'll discuss quick wins and next steps, and we've got accountability going on. I'm always excited to help people through my groups, and I believe as much as I am facilitating the growth, there's a lot of power in connecting with others who are on the same journey, on the same jump, setting yourself up for life and living life on your terms, and or maybe through a personal brand.
Ryan, it's what my grandfather always taught my mother. C-122, meet Big Joe for more information. You could do whatever you want in life, but there are consequences.
Wow, that's a really good point. I would just expand on this a bit. I would say yes, you can do whatever you want if you are aligned to the outcome. You need to be able to receive that sort of money. You need to be able to see the opportunities that are giving you what you want and need. And most people using the five senses, and this is where the mind gets tricky, is the beliefs are running your results. Let's say if you have lack of money was your reality, or not enough time, or not connected, not smart enough, then you could have the best opportunity right in front of you on the table. You wouldn't even notice because the mind is limited and the five senses is used to then filter out all the information, opportunities, even people who are fitting into your beliefs about the world and about yourself. And if there's no one to change that with you, then a mind left to its own devices will go back painful repetition.
So I want to talk to you more about your father. So you said when you were growing up, you felt you had to walk on eggshells. How did it feel after you realized you never had to walk on eggshells again?
Wow. You know how I did it? When I was young, I realized because my dad was working 5 to 6 days a week, and he was at the weekends, I had to go and work in our gardens. We had these plots of land. Hated it. But they'd never asked me, what do you want? So early on, probably I was 8-year-old when I realized, I don't want to do this. I thought, how could I break out of this terrible reality? And I then started to play basketball. And luckily, I was doing quite well. And later on at age 13, the team became national champions in Hungary. And I realized, trainings every day almost, and 1 or 2 games a weekend will buy my freedom. And to be honest, sometimes I was lying to my parents that I had a game. I didn't. Of course, if I had a game at midday or 2 p.m., they couldn't take me to my usual rounds of work because that was their life. And unfortunately, that's where I learned working hard is normal and working hard for money is true. I believe it's not. Remember, your beliefs create the reality and the results that you have. Better be careful and do an audit or an inventory about what you believe about life or about yourself.
Please tell me you and your father have ever made up for this. Oh boy, you've got to be kidding me. I wish you would have had a good fight because you're a man who deserves it.
I did make, with my transformation, this family has, I hope, changed forever because I became a transformational father who has changed these patterns of frustration and has to work hard and not good enough. And to be honest, probably my dad has never admitted that he needed psychological help. But you know what? He's been disowned by my grandfather. He was really hard to deal with, figuring the family. He had a rule-based life. But why was that? Because my grandfather was an alcoholic. Obviously, he was not a good type of alcoholic, so my grandfather has rules about everything. So his safety mechanism rules about when we do things, how we do things, how much alcohol we drink. I was only allowed to, I remember, he had such brutal rules. He said, you're not allowed to drink only after you finished your food. Where is this coming from? And I was exposed to it most of my childhood. So I would say they were wounded people. They had their own problems. And that's what happens when there is unawareness, which I'm here to change. The unawareness and these limiting patterns are being passed on to the next generation, unless there is someone who can change the course of a family and change the outcomes for the new generations. I'm really glad that this is happening. Obviously, I'm not perfect before anyone thinks now I'm a work in progress.
I am too. And part of it, you're right. It is the ancestors before us. Why do you think there's some alcoholism that runs in my family? Someone down the line, probably in a war, had an alcohol problem. And then the rest, it just keeps falling and falling. But I respect the people more who get out of their situation and are smart enough to realize, what they're doing isn't right.
You got it so spot on, Sam. When I was working on my past and not working, but specifically, my coach was helping me to release some of these beliefs and conditionings that I found that, yes, my grandparents lived through 2 world wars, World War I, World War II. That was really not enough of anything. And if you had something, the government or the state has just, taken and deprived people of their private land. It was true for them that there is not enough food, there is not enough resources, there was scarcity. The problem is this: the mind has no sense of time. Because these patterns are passed on to the next generations, I have seen my dad, and this is ridiculous, he's been working and working and working like a dog, usually 6 or 7 days a week. He found out when he died, he had quite a bit of money put aside, which we didn't know about. A handful of years, he's been running and running, although for him it was more so an escape mechanism as well, because he wasn't getting on well with people. So he escaped to work to his business, yet he could have given my mom a wonderful time, much more time away and vacations and maybe traveling, which he wasn't prepared to do.
It just shows money isn't all good. It can be evil. And your story reminds me of an episode of Young Sheldon where the mother literally hid from the father, hey, I have money on my spare time. So the money that we spend together isn't just my money, it's our money. Did you ever notice that your money, when I would get to have that? Yes. Really? No. When you're married, you share the wealth.
You should, or at least discuss it. I remember when I was about 8, 13, 14, I remember my mom, she just didn't have enough. There was this change, political and economical change in Central Europe from communism to capitalism or the free market economy, and she didn't have enough. She started up this grocery store. She worked like a dog, 12 hours a day. I was helping her in this little shop. And my sister, it was difficult. Dad was just not much spending time around us.
Now you're also a podcast host. You have a show called The Heroes Podcast. So can you tell me about The Heroes Podcast, please?
Absolutely. By the way, Sam is one of my heroes, and I believe he's doing amazing things. The podcast is about people from all walks of life with difficult or impossible challenges and how they have overcome their own struggles and troubles and traumas in life. At times, disabilities or mental or emotional issues, which could be anything, drugs, sexual abuse, and I've heard all kinds. I put on stage their stories from those difficult times. What made the difference? That's the middle of each of my episodes. What made the difference? How they have been to shift to their new self. And usually that new self, that new reality is a life on their terms, or at least doing what they love, contributing to the planet or to people. Usually it's done through a personal brand. I believe that's ideally the journey for each and every human being on this planet. When you're not ending up working for someone else's goals. So I hope that I've been inspiring with my amazing guests, a lot of people, because these are beautiful, nurturing episodes for people who are looking for their next level result.
If you had to pick, what was the most impactful episode?
Oh, that is a difficult question. The last one, she was Lillian Brummett from the US. She lived through hell when she was young. I couldn't even believe that from those broken places, there were drugs in the family, that had psychological issues, but pretty bad ones. She was thrown out of the house at age 13, and she somehow has been able to survive this. And that was through sexual harassment too. She's been able to overcome this and build a life that is so exciting. She's writing. She has these wonderful blogs. They run a media company with her husband. She built a meaningful life out of this impossible and terrible experience. I feel lucky when I heard her story last week. By the way, the hashtag is The Heroes Podcast. You'll be able to find that on my channel. It's refreshing how she had chronic depression, years and years of therapy, but it's the outcome. There's some people who pretty much written down for the rest of their life or ending up in addiction. That's a normal path, right? But some people, they just bring out the best of themselves slowly but surely, and they give us, to the listeners, the blueprint or the steps, the what to do, what not to do, and the tips how to bring a new reality about and a new life of potential and fun and joy and fulfillment.
It's always good to have fulfillment in life. So you said something during our session, and it's a big quote, and it's really powerful. It's what you focus on is what you attract and create in your life. So can you tell me why what you focus on is what you attract and create in your life is important to you personally and professionally?
If I really go generic, I'm not talking about myself because this applies to every one of us. This is how the mind works. If you are focusing on certain things, the human mind has a really tiny capacity to absorb information. What does that mean? The latest numbers, it's about millions of information is swirling around us each and every moment. Like, think of maybe you're sitting at home, right? You're not focusing on the noise outside of the house, right? Or outside of your home, or you're not listening to the washing machine running or a radio in another room, but it's happening right now. Or you're not focusing on, let's say, the sensation under your palm if you're sitting. It has been there all along, but you filter it out as you're putting your attention on these things. Now you start to register all that information. Now imagine if you started to really focus on what you want, because most people are focusing on what they do not want. They're telling me when I ask them, oh, I don't want any more stress. I don't want any more hard work. Well, the mind has been working for you. The problem is this, especially the subconscious parts of the mind. When you say, I don't want any more abuse, then the attention and the focus is on abuse. You will get more. If you want to avoid fear of not being good enough or fear of rejection, Sam, that was something that is so familiar to you, then I get more rejection. When I say focus on what you want, is if you don't want rejection, you don't want to have lack and scarcity, then you must focus on exactly on what you want and nothing else, which is probably abundance, appreciation, feeling respected, celebrated, or being your own genius. And then you will see, because the mind starts to filter out more and more of that from your environment and from events and information around you, because of that capacity, which is tiny, about 1% of all the information that's always around you that you can record and process. Then you better have that filter set right on what you want. Because unfortunately, most people are very conditioned to what they don't want, and they'll get more and more and more of that until they have a crisis or something collapses in their life, and they are lucky if they have true health at that point, or some major things usually happen to people when they reach out to me. Unfortunately, it's sort of either money collapse or health or relationships.
Well, let me ask you this, and as a doctor, do you think these stories are sometimes excuses from living their full potential?
Oh, you really got this. Yes. Stories. And I'm referring to the stories that people tell themselves, the internal scripts, are probably the biggest obstacles in front of having what one wants. Because let's say if you tell yourself that you haven't got enough money, you haven't got enough time, and maybe that's what you heard from your parents, but somewhere along the line you must take responsibility. But if you keep telling the same story, then you will experience exactly that. And then more and more and more of that. Be very careful. You want to stop for 5 minutes right after this episode and really empty your calendar and sit for 5 minutes and ask yourself, what are the common themes running in my mind? Because as you know, the thousands and thousands of thoughts are getting repeated in people's minds, yet they don't connect the dots, which if you keep thinking and saying the same things to yourself, are you really expecting your life to change?
If you keep having the same negative thoughts, you ain't going to be like, well, I'm going to change today. If you keep thinking, it's not like a mind shift in one setting.
Also, I need to add the same thoughts and internal scripts usually are there for a reason. And they usually are to do with the past, because something has happened in the past that may be still traumatic or unprocessed. So the mind is hanging on to it as if it was a live rope. I want you to understand this because I want to make this really specific. If I say I don't trust people, that's a really good example, isn't it? It's a survival mechanism because I've been abused or maybe even beaten up at a younger few years back. Then I have a good reason to not trust. In essence, the human mind is doing its best to protect me. But what if the environment has changed? What if that event was when I was 7 years old? When I'm now 27 or 37 or 47, like I'm safe, I'm grown up, maybe I'm even going to the gym and I'm good and fit and healthy, then that belief does not apply anymore. And let's say I now want to have a life partner or want to romantic relationship. How is it going to work? I have a belief that I can't trust people because that internal conflict will have a learning experiences for you, which is obviously you will re-attract your beliefs, which is, oh, I met again someone else who was not reliable. I can't trust because this and this and this has happened. But that's a reflection. That's the symptom of the belief that I have about men or women or about people who I can't trust. The root has to be dealt with, almost like if you have a garden, then trimming the weed is not going to have a last effect, right? You will need to remove these weeds from your mind. I have to say they are weeds because they are not serving you. You want to remove them by the root so they will not. And I'm a gardener.
I can tell you are. We are too. I just had to give a friend some tomatoes and peppers because we were growing too many crops.
We have menthol out here in the garden, and that just doesn't stop. It just spreads like cancer cells. Luckily, menthol is healthier, but this is where I say, if you're listening to us, become a gardener and take charge of the garden which is in your head. And remember, every thought, every assumption that repeats, where you can accept it, or you could from today push it away or reject it, where you question it, where you challenge it. Really, I don't have time, or I don't know how to communicate well. Well, there were instances when I connected with people quite well. I sometimes tell my clients, like, reject that thought and replace it. Obviously, at times it takes deeper work, but it's a start to replace the old stories with new ones. Also, you want to probably create a new vision of yourself and a new vision of your life. So at least then you had a direction, because most people have no direction. They are just running in circles.
So you also studied religion. What religion did you study, and what did religion teach you?
I have been reading and listening and learning about religions. I was not religious. I was born in a communist country in the 70s where religion was almost banned. I started to look and read and learn about all these different religions, and I saw that they had very similar principles, which I love, like unconditional love, respect everyone and treat any living thing with care, all of these things. I love it. Yet what I had seen over and over again as they have been dividing people up, and they made people fight over nuances, fight over the interpretation, let's say, of the Bible. So, and I've obviously, looking back through the centuries, we've seen wars, people killing each other in the name of God. There's a big disconnect in my mind. Then some of the religions are unfortunately not, let's say, tolerant enough, or they do not live their teachings. So preaching is cheap for me. I would have wanted to see follow through and congruencies. If I don't see that and didn't see that, I realized I cannot, with a good heart, belong to one religion. If I'm very spiritual, I do probably have similar principles that most religions have, yet I'm not religious. And I believe religion has its place, and religion is serving, if it's applied, it's really serving humanity in big ways.
I'm not religious either, but I can respect people who use religion as a tool to help them change their ways of life for the better.
Obviously, humans are always looking for more, or understanding about their lives or their challenges, and probably need hope, believe in something bigger than themselves. And I do believe that there is source energy, soul, the universe is there for us, it's helping us. I think there is misinterpretation in a lot of religions, which I pick up. It's not my fault. It's God's doing this. The mind loves to find these loopholes. I think we're all doing our best according to our conditioning, which comes from the past, comes from parents. And I believe we are all hopefully progressing, evolving, and growing towards a new version of self.
Now, folks, we'll be right back here at Ad from the Rock 96.1 radio station, so let's get to it.
We want to thank 96.1 The Quarry, especially David and Dan Hayes, for being a gold sponsor for our Summerfest. 96.1 residents in Bloomington, Indiana, and like Autism Rocks and Rolls, they rock and roll too. Visit their website at rock961fm.com to hear them out. And when they're on the station, be sure to listen to them live on their website or catch them on the radio in your car. If you like Kiss, Queen, 80s Rock, or ZZ Top, I think you have found your station. 96.1 also supports our veterans, so you should support them too. Visit 96.1. Yeah!
All right, folks, and we're back. You'll definitely run through this radio station. Andre, I want to talk to you more about some therapies you tried. So what therapies did you go to?
I did try past life regression. I did try hypnosis, NLP, which was the most successful for me. I tried matrix therapy. I think it's called family. It's a role type of therapy when there are these family members set up. I've tried a lot of things, and some of them were workshops. And I think some had helped me to understand more of myself. So I'm not saying they are not working. I'm just saying if you are looking out for yourself and you're looking for therapies that may work, then really pay attention, because I've seen people who have been seeing, some of them have been seeing psychologists for years and there has been no tangible results. Challenge if you need to the therapy that is not getting you the results and is not getting you change, because if you started with the aim of changing how you think, changing how you feel, changing your result, then I guess you should see something within a few months at least, or find good changes. But I didn't see much happening from some of those therapies. There is also something else I want to share. Diabetes has a lot to do with not receiving love. So the body is hanging on to sugar, sweet, so it can somehow make up the missing self-love or love from outside. You might want to really look at that as a psychological cause for diabetes, rather than just looking at the body and the usual markers that modern medicine is measuring.
Well, I just learned something new today. I didn't realize diabetes may have come from not having self-love, but you're talking about theories that are controlling. Have you heard of ABA therapy?
No, I haven't.
Well, I have my own views on ABA therapy, but there have been people in America where they say ABA is controlling. But because they'll feel like stirring up the pot, I'll just leave it at that.
There are, I think, wonderful therapies that work to create change. And there are a lot of them that has marginal results or no results. And also I have a free giveaway, by the way. It's called, I think I called it Sort Your Shit Out so you can get what you want. It's on my website, drselfless.com, and the free resources. It's 3-page. 3 pages, 6 steps that if you follow them, then you'll be able to see and pick up what's not working and move on. And this is where I have this, as you know, a very unconventional approach. I say the doctor of selfless means result. I don't want anyone's money who did not create the change that I promised and we came up with. I'm hoping the next few years and next few decades, there will be more transparency. Probably reviews will help us to see what's working, what's not working. But I feel like a pioneer to then be able to stand behind my word and create value. I'm happy to back that up with money back guarantee.
You also won a national championship at a young age. What was that national championship for?
It was basket with the team. We won the national championship. I was trying to get my dad to be impressed or to be acknowledged or to be congratulated or to be loved. But it didn't work at all. So I ran a few marathons and I did long distance swimming and some climbing ice.
What marathons did you run?
The usual 26.5 miles, I believe, counting miles, 42.5 kilometers. It's long and it's an arduous journey, step by step.
Hey, it's like the mind, step by step some days. You also drove trucks, so if you don't mind me asking, what trucks did you drive?
That's a whole story, man. I was driving trucks for 8 or 9 years in Australia, and I drove your American monsters. I was driving Canvas and Max. They were very tough on my shoulder. Eventually, I was luckier to move on to Volvos and Scania and DAF and MAN, which were automatic and easier. But the truck sizes were from semi-trailers to multiple trailers that you would see in the US. The reason why I started it because it was too scary for me. How do you reverse multiple trailers?
Next thing you know, you'll start driving a monster truck. Put you in Monster Jam. How about that?
That would be fun. Usually at the end, I was driving container trucks up to 70, 80 ton. So it was plenty of traveling from the port to our depot.
Endre, we'll wrap her up here. These are just for some fun questions. What is your paradise meal or favorite food, and why is it your favorite?
Oh, wow. Favorite food. I love that question. When I was young, I probably would have been able to answer this straight. Probably, I really love veggie soups, yes, because they are nutritious, healthy, and I really love salads. I don't know, pick one.
Hey, we could do both. Salad and soup combos. We love that in America.
Well, really got me. And I'm still not sure how you're going to use these two songs that you asked for. I've never been asked for one of my favorite songs for a podcast interview. Tell me about that.
You just made your intro and outro.
Oh, really? Okay.
What is your favorite movie or TV show, and why do you like it?
Favorite movie? I love The Gladiator, if you remember, with Russell Crowe. It was an example of true leadership and power and what it takes to lead, no matter what environment you are. Also, there's another one called The Peaceful Warrior that really resonated with me and with transforming my life.
So what has been your favorite vacation you've ever taken, and why did you enjoy that vacation very much?
These are difficult questions. I love to visit Cambodia, which is a Southeast Asian country, and specifically Angkor Wat, which is a massive temple complex where I've been cycling around for 3 or 4 days to visit all of the sites. And the time I spent it, and there is a hospital called Antawoppa. This is a very third world country. And these 2 doctors from Switzerland, they have been able to provide Western quality health care. So I was giving donations there, and I also gave blood. Those were very special times for me.
You said it's an Asian country. Does that mean you have visited China before?
I did travel around Asia, and I spent 2 trips in China, I think 3 weeks twice. But this one is not far. It's sort of near Thailand and Vietnam in between.
Oh, wow. Well, my mother, she's a teacher up in the United States, and it's kind of cool what we did when I was in school. So what we did one year was we had the Chinese students visit America and see what the culture is like there and see what the school system is. And then we had my mother actually go to China, see what their culture is like and school system. There was a big cultural difference in a 360-degree turn.
Yes, rule-based and very restrictive.
So my final question is, are there any good memories that you want to tell our viewers about? If you do, why do you remember that memory the most? But before you answer, I'd like you to end with a sentimental memory that made you just feel good inside. You forgot the world could be a cruel place, and a funny memory that made you fall on the floor laughing.
Well, I remember when I was driving around with 4 guys out of university. We were driving around Spain in this old trodden car, and we didn't have money for accommodation. So the European summer, we drove around Spain, Mediterranean, France, and Italy. And we had these big bus pulls up on the motorway beside us, and they are all yelling out. I'm like, what's wrong with these people? And they say, they're pointing to the back of the car. So we pull over. And this was an old Opel Senator. I remember that was the brand of the car, or the type. And we walked back to the car. And this car, if you fired up the engine and you forgot something, you could pull out the ignition key and you could open up the boot. And the key was hanging in the back in the boot while we were driving the car without the key in the ignition.
Oops. Next, I remember the key, but it reminds me of something very similar with the boat. So we were going to go pontooning because we like pontoon boats. And there was a tube hate because we like to go tubing as children. My responsibility was to watch the tube. Well, I looked back there a couple times. It's doing good. Well, then I look again about 20 minutes later. Oh, no. I was like, hey, guys, I think we lost the tube. And I was like, thank God it was the tube, not the boat, because that would have been blocking some heavy traffic. Well, Endre, I think that's all. Is there any closing remarks you want to say, bub?
If you listen to us this far, I want to say never give up on your dreams, on your plans, on a better vision of yourself. And please be flexible how you can get there, and seek therapy, seek help, seek mentors, seek coaches, because I believe they are your fast lane, and trust that you will get there, like myself. Thank you very much. I loved being on your show.
Well, thank you, Endre. You have a great day now. Appreciate for this episode. Please share for another episode coming in very soon. And when you're listening to me ramble, thank you very much.